Hello, I'm Pamela Davis. Welcome to episode 72 of the Well Done Life podcast. Hello, and welcome back to episode 72 of the Well Done Life podcast. I'm your host, Pamela Davis. If you are new here, hey, welcome. Thank you for joining the party. I hope you stay a while. If you've been here before, you guys know how I feel about you, but I just want to say thank you for continuing to rock with me. Your support means everything. So welcome again. Before we get into this week's episode, I like to kind of always start off with a few housekeeping items. I kind of feel like what we're doing when we have these conversations is that we're building a safe space, and it's like a house. So I want to make sure that what we are doing with this house and this safe space is that we are building this on love, and we are building this on clarity. So what I'd like to do is start off first with clarity. I want to make sure you all know why you're here, just in case you want to try to exit stage left, but hopefully you don't. Stay. Please don't go anywhere. The Well Done Life podcast is a safe space for women to come together and share our stories. I truly believe that women are the foundation of society, and I think it's just important that we have spaces where we can share, learn, and grow together, because I think we've all kind of figured out there are really no experts at this thing called life. No matter what anybody says, don't let them tell you. Nobody has this thing 100% figured out. But the great thing about it is that we are all equipped with experiences that will give us the tools that we need to live our best lives. We just have to unlock it. We just have to be able to be vulnerable. We have to be willing to have the rough, tough, loving conversations sometimes that are needed so that we can grow on the journey. So my hope is that when I'm sharing my journey, the good, bad, and the ugly of it all, that I encourage you to share your story, and that we create this place, like I mentioned, of vulnerability and growth together. So welcome to the party. And so you have clarity about why you're here. I want to make sure that then that would lead me into love. And that's such an important part. That's the part we have to. And that's what I want to make sure we have. So I always like to make sure that I started off with prayers. So this week I am sending each of you prayers of love, peace, prosperity, health, and self-awareness. The world is moving. I think we've all kind of said that. I say that every week. The world just keeps on moving. It keeps on getting crazier too. So I'm definitely making sure that we all have covering over ourselves as we are trying to navigate this thing called life, especially because I'll be honest, I'm just amazed at how quickly everybody's just ready to jump back in. It's mind-boggling to me, but I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I know we have to move and live again. Like I said, I think we just have to kind of take our time, make sure that we don't forget about all the great things that we learned, that we kind of wanted to focus on during the quarantine, of kind of being more still and more in tune with ourselves. And that I hope everybody's out here having the best hot, vaccinated, non-vaccinated, safe, social distance, hot girl summer that you can possibly have. I do. I want you to have fun. Because I think, we just kind of completely have stopped ourselves from living during the panini. And I know it's been devastating and hard on a lot of us. So I think as women, especially because we carry so much, that we forget to make time for ourselves. So I just hope that you don't lose sight of it. Don't forget to make time for yourself, chasing the world. It's moving too fast, and the fall can be devastating. So take care of yourself. Chart your course, set your boundaries, and don't feel guilty about boundaries, and have fun, because this journey is just for you. So make sure that you are doing what you need to do for that, because everyone's going to have an opinion. And that's really not your problem, because I really feel like everyone just needs to focus on minding the business that pays them. I think a lot of people really just need to do that. But hey, that's another side note. And if you need assistance, even telling people about that, last week, not the week that I took off, which I'll talk about in a moment, but the week before, episode 71, the art of shutting the fuck up, it will be linked in the show notes, because remember, there is power in controlling how you engage with people or with situations. And you just need to make sure that you have some timely reminders and thoughts on what you can do to control that power. So I thought, let me help you as I am helping myself, because I think when you pour into one person, you pour back into yourself by sharing that episode again with you. So I will have it linked below in the show notes. So like I said, last week I took a social media break. I was exhausted and I just needed a break. So I said no new episode. And I don't really like to come to you guys not prepared. That's just not my thing at all. I feel like you give me the time to listen to me, and I owe you good content. So I just kind of last week was feeling overwhelmed with a lot of different adulting things that I must do that we all probably understand. And I just needed a moment. So I took it and I'm feeling much better. I have to admit, this world is still crazy. I see the things are still going on, and I've still done a ton of adulting this week, but I feel a lot more in control. So I always say it is very important to take those times for self-care. Take those times. Don't be ashamed of it. Because, last week especially, we were coming back to a short week, and I don't know about y'all, but short weeks can feel so stressful coming back to the office, because it's like you're trying to cram all this stuff in a shortened amount of time, and it's just overwhelming. But you don't have to live that way. I feel like, sometimes you can step back and take a moment to, regroup and get yourself together, like I said, which is what I did. And in that time, I thought, it's just a really good time for me to be silent, take my own advice of shutting the fuck up, and just kind of calm down and think. And during that time, it was great because it kind of led me into talking about what I wanted to talk about this episode. And full disclosure, I actually wanted to talk about it last week, but like I mentioned, I wasn't prepared, and I don't like to come to you guys not prepared with good information. But I said, this week I'm ready. I feel fully prepared. So I'm here and I'm grateful. And I want to talk about spaces. And really what I want to talk about is I want to talk about spaces where women reside. Because I think a lot of times as women, we are in spaces more often than not where we are tolerated versus valued. And I don't know how many people have really been thinking about that, but it's been coming up quite a bit in the news in different situations. But the thing that made me really, really think about it a lot was the situation with Nikole Hannah-Jones and UNC. And for those of you that don't know about Nikole Hannah-Jones, she is the author of the 1619 Project. It was a project that I've talked about on the podcast before that documents the roots of slavery throughout the United States, as well as its impact on different societal constructs, and how in regards to racism. And it's a very well-written piece. I'll make sure I link it. But long story short, I'm sure you all have heard there was a lot of back and forth with Ms. Jones as well as UNC in reference to a position that she was offered as a McKnight Fellow, where her position was supposed to come with tenure. However, they decided that they did not want to offer her tenure. And there had been a position that was offered to her where she would take the job for 5 years with the understanding that tenure would come at a later time. And originally, she did sign a contract. It came out to be that she would take the position. But I think after further thought and consideration and whatever else may have happened behind the scenes, she realized that that is not a situation that she wanted to be in. And Ms. Jones wrote an op-ed about the position after she decided instead to take her talent to Howard University, which is one of the leading predominantly black colleges in the United States, as well as the alma mater of Vice President Kamala Jones and many other notable individuals. And so she will be utilizing her skills there with tenure in a position created especially for her. And in her op-ed, I kind of leading back to the topic for today, one of the things that she referenced is how, she realized that she had allowed herself to be in a position where she was comfortable being tolerated versus valued, and how she made the decision to say no, no. In spite of the fact that UNC actually is her alma mater, she did not go to Howard University. And that is one of the reasons why she wanted to teach at UNC, because of the fact that she was an alum. But unfortunately, she recognized that even with being an alum and having that title, you still have to go to places where you are valued. And that taking this position for 5 years without the opportunity of tenure, knowing that her position required her to be able to have that when other candidates were getting that same position previously, she realized that she was limiting herself and that she was taking less than just to be in the role, just to be in the place, and that was not honoring her. So she did as any woman has the right to do. She changed her mind, and now she is going into the university, like I said, to Howard University, where she will be valued and respected, as well as given the tenure that she wants. And that, like I said, made me think about how many times have I been in positions where I have been tolerated versus valued. And I'm definitely going to say I have been in quite a few of those. I would think even on the professional space, because that typically is where we mostly all think about a lot of those instances. But I'm also thinking in the personal space too. So I wanted to talk about that because I feel like as women, a lot of times we are doing exactly what Ms. Jones did. We take our talents to different positions, or we give our talents to different people because we want to be included. We want to be a part of something, or because we have an emotional tie, that is in her case, that was her alma mater, or we are emotionally invested in the person who we care about, or we love the job that we're at, but the job just doesn't love you. And the person that you think is your friend, you recognize as time goes on, they don't really value you. Or even in relationships, you think that you have this relationship that is built on love and trust, but that person is too comfortable with you and they don't value you. And unfortunately, a lot of times, it's not something that's easily recognized, because when we want something, I know when I want something, I want it. And in a lot of instances in my previous years and growth, I have recognized that I allowed my wants to supersede what I was being shown. Everyone always likes to say red flags in relationships. You get red flags in jobs. You get red flags in all different types of situations. But more often than not, we are just so emotionally tied to something that we lose our perspective because, again, you want it so badly and you wind up going for something and you think it's great in the beginning. But then when you have moments of processing, you realize, this is really not all that it's cracked up to be. And a lot of times we're not equipped with how to get out of it. And I think that's where it gets really tricky in reference to making these decisions, because kind of like what Ms. Jones did, it's not the norm. A lot of other people, if I think about it, would have stayed in that role. I mean, she signed a contract. A lot of people would have said, well, I signed this contract, I signed this agreement, I am stuck. How often, and this is a rhetorical question, how often have you put yourself in a situation knowing that it wasn't what you wanted to do because you were like, well, it'll get better, or it's a short-term situation? You tell yourself those things to justify something that you know in your heart is not worthy of you. I know, like I said, for myself, I've been there and done that. And I have to admit, when I was preparing for this episode, I even sat down and thought, am I still in those positions now where I am not valued and where I am tolerated? And I would say that I have definitely made progress in that regard. I don't think I'm 100% out of it yet, but I have definitely made progress. And I want to talk about how you can make progress too. Because like I said, I know I'm not alone. I know that there are a lot of us who are in some of these situations because, again, we have our blinders on. We are seeing what we want to see versus being able to take things that we are being fed at face value and understand what they are. So that, like I said, kind of led me to want to talk about it today so that I could give you some insights and steps on ways that can help you, hopefully, one, identify that you may be tolerated versus valued. And then the second portion of it, let's talk about steps that you can take to help you make the shift to remove yourself from those situations, because I'm definitely going to preface it before we really get into that too heavy. That is not an easy thing to do. What Ms. Jones did is not an easy thing to do. To say no to something after you've said yes, especially one that you are contractually obligated to, is not an easy thing to do. And a lot of times you just stick with it, even though you know you're burning up inside that you have made this decision. What she did was an act of bravery, and she should be commended for it. But at the same time, understand that that was not an easy decision. So when you're making those choices to move yourself out of situations where you know you are not where you are tolerated versus valued, understand it will not be easy. And I'm not going to give you steps to make it feel like it's easy, but I will definitely give you steps that will hopefully help encourage you to take those steps. Because if you at least take the steps, then you are beginning to put yourself in a position that I think is just going to open your life up in such a way where you will thrive. And ultimately, that's what this is all about. So, like I said, first, let's kind of talk about, recognizing if you are tolerated versus valued. And if I think about it from a corporate perspective, I don't know, sorry, I was speaking too fast and got jumbled up there. But from a corporate perspective first, I would definitely say one instance where you may feel like you are tolerated versus valued is if you are in situations where your opinion is sought out for a particular subject or on a particular project, but your opinion is kind of overrun. So let's just say you're in a group meeting and you're having a conversation and everyone is giving their insight on a particular project and you give your input. They're like, well, no, da 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 da. But then somebody says the exact same thing right afterwards, but they say it in a totally different way. Your opinion, then you may be tolerated versus valued. Or if you give your opinion and they're like, oh, yeah, and they only are like just giving you those passive words like, okay, well, we hear you. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, yes. And there's no insight. And then they keep moving to the next thing and they just totally bypass what you're saying and keep going until somebody else gives an opinion that they want to hear versus listening to yours. And even though your opinion makes more sense than probably that other person's opinion, you may be tolerated versus valued. And I say that from a perspective of it can also kind of feel, if you are not careful as an African American or a person of color, it may feel like a microaggression when it happens to you. And in some instances it could, because a lot of times, we are in positions in those situations where we're talked over and where people kind of just give you those pacifying, yes, acknowledging words without really actually listening and applying what you're saying. So you do have to kind of sort through that as well. And it kind of gets twisted up. So I don't really know, I have to admit, what is the best way to kind of separate it. I think to me, that's just a check either way that you might not be in the right situation. And I would even think in relationships, and let's take friendship first. And I think in friendship, it is very easy to recognize whether you are tolerated or valued as a friend. Because I think, we can clearly see when our friends are engaging with us, whether or not they are giving us their true heart in a lot of instances. And when you're not giving someone your true heart, normally it's just either you're getting silence or you're getting attitude, you're just getting something that's going to exude to you like, okay, this might not be the right friend for me. But I think the hard part of being able to tell the difference between being tolerated and valued in friendship is being able to separate your own personal emotion from what you are hearing. Because a lot of time, obviously as in friendships, we love our friends. We care about them. I mean, this is your sister. This is your ride or die. So you never want to see them in a light other than beauty and grace, and this is my supporter, my friend. They always have my back. But in some instances, you have to be able to separate that and be able to look at a situation objectively. I think I've said it before, but one of the 4 agreements is not to make assumptions and to be impeccable with your word. So when you are listening to someone, and let's say in a friend, you get a friend who's giving you a little bit of shade and they say something that you kind of feel like, okay, this might have been kind of a jab. Instead of taking that in and just keeping going and overlooking it, which is what happens a lot of times in some friendships, like, I know your butt is shady, but that's just my girl and she's just being shady and I'm gonna let that go. And you just move on and you don't say anything, even though in the back of your mind, that doubt that you had that instant gets planted inside of you. You have to fight against that feeling and be upfront. And you have to approach your friend like, hey, I felt like when you commented in reference to me that there might have been a little bit of shade in there. Is something going on? Do you want to talk to me about it? I just want to make sure that I'm understanding you correctly. And you have to be strong enough to be able to say that. And that's not easy at all. Because again, like I said, we love our friends. Those are our girls, our ride or dies, our best buddies. But a lot of times people will get slick at the lip if they feel like they can say something to you and they just think that you're just going to let it rock without being upfront and honest. And as adults, as friends, as sisters, we have to be loving enough to come correct with our words and ask for clarity. Because when you allow something like that to go unchecked, even though you think it's minor, all those little minor things begin to add up. And if it's something that someone does continuously, it's just going to unfortunately eat away at you until it gets to a point where you just get so overwhelmed by having all of these moments where this person has been shady to you that you're going to say something that you're going to regret. And believe me, I'm speaking that from experience, because unfortunately I have had friendships where I didn't address little shade and I let it rock because I said, oh, they're going through something. Or, oh no, she's my girl. She would never disrespect me. This is my ride or die. And a lot of times all that does, and it built up. It totally built up, and it led to confusion, and it led to arguments. And we would have arguments every once in a while. But then this one last one that we had, it had just built up as so many little microaggressions, so many of them, that unfortunately things were said that we couldn't come back from. And so our friendship wound up suffering for that. So I'm telling you that to say, you have to make sure that you are dealing with people from a place of clarity and love. Don't let the love blind you to the truth. And don't make assumptions about what you're hearing. Seek for truth. So that means that you have to be impeccable with your word. Don't come out all guns blazing trying to cuss somebody out, and ask for clarity. If they're your friend, if they're your sister, if they're the person that you are ride or die with, they will be able to receive that in love, and you two will have a dialogue, and you will clear the air, and then you will also set a boundary so that that person can understand what you will tolerate and what you won't, and your relationship will get stronger. And if that person is not supposed to be in your life and that person is not your family and they were just tolerating you, I can guarantee that something will come out that will just blow that little situation apart, and then you will know who you're dealing with and you can act accordingly. And it doesn't have to become a drawn out, drag out argument. Don't take it from me. I made that mistake. It really doesn't. But At the same time, it you just but that's on you. Let me take that back. Let me say it that way. If it becomes an argument, that's on you, because you can still stay in control of your emotions. Just rest in the knowledge that this person is showing you exactly who they are, and you are getting the opportunity to receive and believe it so that you can make a decision on how that person will navigate in your life. And you will be okay. You won't die. You won't cry. You might cry, but you won't die, and you will make a decision and recognize that this is just the space in time where this person may not value you the way that you thought they did, and now you need to act accordingly. And that even can be applied, I also think, in regards to relationships. I have to admit for myself, sometimes I've had a hard time when I've been dating certain guys that I've dated in my past. In regards to clarity, I have, because it's like, I have liked the dudes, and yes, I've liked the dudes, and sometimes I know this dude's not about anything, but he's just so cute, or he's so sweet, and he can say whatever, and I would just fall for it, even though I was getting all the red flags, believe me. And I've had some red flags. We'll have to talk about that another time. We're not going into all that now. I'm just saying I've learned some lessons. However, I wasn't always good with clarity on certain situations, because I just didn't want to believe it, because I just liked the guy so much, and I just wanted to make sure that everything was right. And so I have to admit, I think I allowed myself to stay in situations where I wasn't valued way too long, and that was because I was not leading from a place of being impeccable with myself and asking for clarity. I was making assumptions based upon false actions, and that was just creating confusion. So again, that same situation that I described to you in reference to dealing with a friend, you could apply it to a situation with someone that you are having a relationship with. And it's not just about guys. I mean, hey, if you love women, you can have that same conversation with your girl. If you love whatever, you can have that same conversation, because really it's all about clarity and being impeccable. But because the only thing that ultimately you want to make sure that you accomplish is understanding that you are in a position that you are opening your heart and your soul and your energy to someone who values you. It is too easy to give yourself to someone who doesn't. It is harder to give yourself to someone who values you, because you have to be more open. You have to be clearer. You have to be more honest. I have to admit, for the relationships that I was in where I felt valued and loved, one in particular I think about, he and I used to just talk about anything and everything. And it was just like we were clear with each other all the time. If there was any kind of confusion, we could talk about it. Like, I remember one time, in this relationship, was quite a while ago, I thought he was seeing someone else, and he was like, no, she's just a friend. And he was very open about it. He made sure I could meet her. We were able to hang out. We actually even became very good friends. It was just, and he was totally open. He didn't get defensive when I brought it up. He was like, no, not at all. And he reaffirmed me, just letting me know, I am totally invested in our relationship, and I really want to be with you. This is one of my good friends. You can meet her. It was just one of those situations where I allowed myself to be vulnerable and tell him my fear and my concern in a clear, uncrazy way. Like, it wasn't like I was emotional, crying, upset, yelling, angry. I was just very honest about what I wanted to know and what I needed to know in order to stay in this relationship. And he received it. I think we just have to be willing to understand that there are people who in our lives can receive us at our most vulnerable, at our most honest. And we should be open to being able to be kind with our words while asking for clarity and not making assumptions, because we want to make sure that we are in a good place in that relationship. So that's why I think you have to understand that in relationships as well, it's just very important to be impeccable with your word. But it's also one of those situations where if you are impeccable with your word, if you are honoring yourself by being true with what you need and what you want, the people who really want to be there for you and support you, they will value that and they will act accordingly. And the people who don't, unfortunately, may hurt a little bit, but it's better to hurt right now than to be hurt years from now, chasing behind someone who just does not value you, but is keeping you along the ride for the ride because you're convenient and because you're a space filler, and you are no one's space filler. But you have to know that. No one is going to pour that into you to tell you that. You've got to know it. And so those are just some areas of identifying that you might be in situations that don't value you, and from a personal and work situation. So now, like I said, you've seen that, you know that, and now you want to make changes. And like I started off earlier, doing that, removing yourself from situations where you are not valued, is hard work. It is super hard work. And a lot of times, I think it reveals in each of us different areas where we could have done things differently. So like, let's take it back to work, since that's where we started when we initially started this conversation. If you know that you are in a job that you are not valued at and you want to make a move, making that move is on you. And it doesn't mean that you have to go in there and quit tomorrow. I don't recommend that, not unless you have a plan. I'm not saying you got to have a job. I'm just saying you have to have a plan on what you want to do if you are not in a position where you are valued. But if you are not valued, and let's say you feel that way, the first question that I would ask is, have you asked for clarity on your place within the organization that you are in? Because I think that a lot of us have to remember, from working in a corporate structure, even though we have training classes, you have HR, you have all of these things, our growth and progression is really on us. And so you have to be able to take as much initiative as humanly possible to make sure that you are an integral part of the organization if that's what you want to be. You control that outcome. You do. So you have to at least first take the initiative to make sure that your direct manager knows that you are looking to move along through the organization, that you are asking for coaching and mentoring, that you are asking for training, that you are asking for whatever you feel like you need in order to be able to move through the company. So that's first. And then, okay, you've asked for that. And let's say that you are not getting what you want. Then comes the hard part now. Now it's like, okay, I've asked for these things and I've done some of them. You have to now go and ask your manager, what is your feedback on me? What do you feel that I need to adjust and change within my approach? How can I move through the organization more? I need to be in this type of role in order for me to feel valued in the organization. Is something like that possible? And some of those questions are hard questions to ask because, again, that exposes you and makes you vulnerable. You have to open your mouth. Closed mouths don't get fed in corporate America or in life, as we all have recognized. So that's why I said it's hard work sometimes when you are trying to make sure you are in spaces where you are valued versus tolerated. So you have to be willing to ask these questions, and you have to be ready to receive the answers. And when you receive the answers, you have to be able to assess the answer that you're getting. So it's even more work. Yes, that means you really do. You have to be able to cut through the bullshit, especially if you are a person of color, because a lot of times, things are sometimes said in ways that are not as succinct and clear as they should be, to make sure that there's not an offense or because they're uncomfortable. Excuse me. And that's really not your problem, but it's just something that you have to be aware of. So you have to make sure that you leave your interaction getting the answers that you're looking for. So that just means that the work will go back to you, I hate to say again, to make sure that you are asking the questions in a way where you are not defensive, where you are open and receptive and direct to get the feedback that you are looking for. So it is more so, okay, I have taken XYZ course and I have done this type of shadowing. Where do you see me being able to have an opportunity to apply these skills that I have acquired within the next 3 to 6 months within this organization? And how can I get this done? I mean, be very direct about what you want. And yes, that does mean you have to expose your feelings in a way, but they have to be exposed in a sense that they're very strategic, and you have to, again, ask for what you want while at the same time taking into consideration that part of the onus is going to be on you, part of the onus is going to be on your manager. So it's some work to that. Moving through the corporate ladder can be tricky, but at the same time, if it's what you want and you are feeling like you are in a position and you want to stay in this position where you feel like, I'm not being valued, I want more, then you must ask for that. And you must be ready to receive the response, whether it's good or bad. And then you have to be the adult and make a decision for how you want to move going forward. In reference to if you were in a relationship, I'll be honest, it's very similar, because I think about that in one particular situation. A while ago, I was dating this young man. I can't believe I'm calling him a young man. He's not much younger than me, excuse me. This gentleman. And he and I had gotten to a point in our relationship where we were like, I told him, I was like, I want a commitment. I want a relationship. This is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody to be my man, like not just my boo thing. I want a man. Like, are you ready to commit? What are you trying to do? He's like, yeah, of course. That's what he said right when I first asked him. Yes, absolutely. I said, okay, good. Then we'll give this thing a shot. He said, yeah, we'll give it a shot, and we're great. I don't know. He must have went to sleep. He must have thought, I don't know if I'm really ready for it. All of a sudden, the next day, I get this I swear, this continuously long text message talking about, he thought about it. He wasn't 100% ready. It kind of felt like Berger leaving the Post-it note for Carrie in Sex and the City, breaking up with her. If you've seen that episode, you can relate to that. But literally, it's like this long laundry list story and text of why he couldn't, and how he was actually seeing someone else, and how he just wasn't ready to commit. And I'm like, one, you sent that to me via text, which is bananas. Two, I promptly, of course, had to call him, and we had to have a conversation. And in my conversation, I was calm. I really wanted to just cuss him out. I really did. Just pure honesty right now. I did. I wanted to snatch his little soul, because I'm a really nice person, but I can be snarky, cold little heifer if you pull my string. And he had pulled my string. So I said, but no, I'm going to be a beautiful adult queen in this situation. And I said, well, when I was talking to you last night, and he and I had our commitment conversation, let me preface it, face to face. It wasn't like it was over the phone. It was face to face. I said, you couldn't tell me at that particular point in time what was going on, that you were seeing someone else. I had no clue. And he was like, yeah, I know, I kind of missed that. And I was like, you missed that detail. I don't know how you missed that detail. I'm sure if I was that young woman, I'd be pissed that you missed that detail. But I'm not here to discuss that. I'm here to discuss the fact why you felt that you couldn't be honest with me. And then he tried to flip it back on me, was like, oh, you're not being, what did he say? You are not an easy woman to get to know. You can be closed off. I didn't know how to read you. Okay, first, miss me with that bullshit, because I was really clear about what I wanted. And he had asked me specifically what I wanted. I told him exactly what I wanted, and he told me that he could accommodate that. And I said, look, I had to replay that for him. I said, remember, you asked specifically what I wanted this to be. I told you what I wanted it to be. You told me that you could accommodate. So essentially, you lied to me. And I find that to be the most disappointing part of it, because we had known each other for quite some time. It wasn't like we were new dating. We had known each other for a while, and we had come back in each other's life, and When he came back in my life, I was dealing with my dad at that time, and I was in a dark place already, and I'm like, look, I'm squeezing out some emotions and trying to get back out here into the world, and you're playing with my feelings and heart, and I don't have time for that. I really don't. And I was like, I'm not even mad at you, but I want to explain to you that by you lying to me, you are perpetrating a hurt against me, as well as you're hurting the other person that you're dealing with, because essentially you're using both of us. You sit up here, thinking that this is cake, instead of realizing that you're dealing with two women who ultimately care about you and want to build with you, but because you don't know how to treat us, you got now both of us out here looking stupid. And I was like, well, I removed myself from the situation, and I was very nice about it. I didn't even yell. I was so proud of myself. But I literally was like kind of laying down the law as to why he should really be embarrassed for being such an asshole. And then I was like, don't ever speak to me again. Literally, because I'm done with you. I have nothing to say. And I closed that door, sealed it up with the pen, and kept it moving. And he has tried to reach out to me since that time, which men always do. They will always reach out to women. It's such a waste of time. And I never respond. But at the same time, I removed myself from that because I valued myself enough to know that this person wasn't worth engaging with. Because believe me, if I had been comfortable rocking with what he had told me, he would have kept me going. Even though he would have been out here trying to see someone else. And that happens because a lot of times some women will put themselves in positions with guys where you will accept a crumb versus asking for the whole cake. And to me, when you ask for the whole cake, you have to be willing to walk away from the crumbs. You have to be willing to hold that man accountable to his word. And if he all of a sudden switches his word, you have the right to switch yours and you exit the position, and all said and done. Yes, my feelings were hurt a little bit, but I felt proud of myself for doing that, because a lot of times in the past I hadn't made those good decisions. So it really helped me recognize that I am worth more. And like I said, he's still calling child, still sending a note. I get a little post on LinkedIn every once in a while, and I just laugh and keep going, because it's like, why are you wasting your time? I'm never going to talk to you again. And see, those are moments that help feed a woman's ego, because our egos deserve to be fed as well. But again, I know that those can be hard, because no matter if you love someone, you don't want to give up on them. You want to try to work through. But I think as women, we have to stop doing that. We have to demand our respect and be willing to walk in the respect, and be willing to require the work that respect takes. And if that man is supposed to be with you, he will tighten himself up and get himself together. So see, that's why I said it's not easy, and it kind of goes very hand in hand with what you are seeing from your work relationships to your personal relationships, and even in friendships. Like I said, I have been in situations, unfortunately, with friends where I had to hold them accountable. I had to hold myself accountable in that situation, because I was just as guilty, because I wasn't honest about checking their microaggressions. I wasn't honest about checking them and dealing with them head on, and I let them build up a little too much, and it cost me a very good friendship. And in the end, we are cool, but we will never be what we were, because I wasn't honest about things that had gone unchecked. And I totally took accountability for that. I still take accountability for it. You have to be willing to be honest with your friends. If your friends are your girls, your riders, being honest with them should never be an issue. And if you are having an issue, it should never be from a place where you guys got to yell at each other about it. It should be coming from a place of love. If that person can't receive it and gets upset, that's on them. That has nothing to do with you. You have to always worry about you and be willing to lead and come to that place with love, and understand that, yeah, the feedback that you give may not be reciprocated, and that's okay. But you are going to be impeccable with your word. You are going to be clear. You are going to lay your boundaries, and you are going to hold yourself accountable to that, because the right people who are supposed to be in your life will accept the fact that you have boundaries. They will love it, in fact, and they will value that even more about you. So, like I said, I know it's not easy, but I think as women, it's just really important that we start to really look at the crust of our relationships from professional to personal and make sure that we are setting ourselves up to be valued versus tolerated. And when we recognize that situations are being set up where it's more of a tolerating kind of place, we have to be willing to stand in our power. We have to be willing to stand in our voice, and we have to be willing to be impeccable with our word towards someone as well as ourselves and give them feedback about how we feel. We should never be in places where we just cannot be truly valued. It's not good for us long term because, like I said, you do build up aggressions, you build up animosity, and that animosity tears apart at your soul, at your heart, and at your happiness. And like I told you guys, happiness is just the minimum. We are all about trying to go for joy. So that means that we have to be willing to do the hard work. Be willing to put the voice out there on the tough stuff so that we can get the joy. You have to make sure your life is clear, your aisle is clear, your roads are clear so that joy can receive you in all areas of your life at all times. So I hope that kind of gave you guys something to think about because I want to make sure that you are all in the spaces and places where you are valued and loved because right now you are truly valued and loved here in this space. And I am so grateful, like I said, for you being on this journey with me because yes, I'm telling you about it, but believe me, I have lived it. I still battle with it, but I have gotten better. And the only way that I have gotten better is because I took a chance and I believed in me. And I said, you know what? If it's somebody else can do it, why can't I? And if I can speak my truth and be heard and be valued, then everything else will fall into place. And the right people who are supposed to be in my life will fall into place. It's not about shooting everybody and losing all your friends. I'm not trying to say that, or quit your job immediately. I'm not trying to say that. But I am saying, as we are all trying to live our best life, we have to evaluate the spaces, places, and people that we surround ourselves with. And you have to make sure that you are in a conducive environment that values you, that pours into you. And the only way for you to do that is to make sure that you are dealing from a place of clarity and love and being impeccable with yourself and other people while not making assumptions. So I'm going to link Don Miguel Ruiz's book, The Four Agreements, again, because I always refer back to it. It's like such a great guide. And it's so applicable to so many areas of our life. And I will make sure that I also list out some of the points that we discussed today in this episode. But definitely just take a step. Even if you can't do it all, think about what matters to you. Think about where you are in certain situations or with certain spaces or with certain people. And ask yourself, are you valued or are you tolerated? And if you do feel like you're tolerated, commit to figuring out why and making adjustments as necessary that are going to help you be better. Because don't let it eat at you. If it eats at you, it is tearing away at you and it is holding you down. And we need you to be light. Remember, it's all about the joy. Joy comes from lightness and happiness and love. Don't let anyone steal your joy. Value it, care for it, and love it at all times. So that kind of wraps up this week's episode. I will have all of my information in the show notes. I'll be back next week. I've got some great guests that I'm going to be talking to and bringing you some new voices in a couple of weeks. So I'm really excited about that. And I look forward to connecting with you. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can email me at thewelldonelife@gmail.com. You can also follow me on social media at the Well Done Life Podcast on Instagram, or you can connect with me at Pamela L. Davis on Instagram. Either way, I would love to connect with you. I will definitely be back next week. Talk to you soon. Have an awesome rest of the weekend. Bye-bye.